Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I have Hae-In, okay? So, I wanted to make a witty joke, right? Like how she's a slayer of one specific monster, right? But I'll put it this way, this is the most fucking broken character that has ever graced this game, right? And I'll be honestly surprised if they don't nerf her at some point. So, enjoy it while it lasts, and let me get into the video. Let me just start with her basic attacks, right? Pretty decent damage, fast attacking, nothing to complain about. It's just a basic attack, right? And it's good. Her core attack, very fucking high scaling. Like what the fuck? It's basically an ultimate ability at that point when you have core attack scale that well. I don't think anyone competes with that. Like Choi and Bayek are both at like 600, so hers is double that. So she basically sees double damage on her core attack. Although she is more of a basic skill user, because her basic skills are more stacked. But you do attack, like you use her auto attacks quite a bit, so you get to utilize that as well. So her passive, which is basically means if her Q hits, right, 66% chance to apply brand. Brand just makes the enemies more susceptible to crit, be it rate or damage. It's just like the enemies get more critted more and they take more damage from the crit. Now the dancer, right, this is what basically defines why you need to have a high crit on her and why she will not feel good early game, is because if you're not hitting crits on her dancer, right, dancer is going on cooldown because of Waltz of the Sword. Basically, when you hit an enemy with a critical hit, right, it applies this effect for 3 seconds, which makes her ability infinite. Basically, press it all you want, it's not gonna go on cooldown, which works in tangent with the dancer self buff, which is 8% every time you get one stack, right, lasts for 10 seconds. With advancement 1 it goes to 5, so you get like a 40% self attack buff and 40% self crit damage buff, right? It's pretty good. And yeah, if you're not critting, right, you're gonna have a bad time because this skill it really fucking defines her. Now her E, right, is very high damage. It's very fucking high damage scaling. Like compare her core attack is a core attack. But yeah, it has very high scaling. I think the only other one really that can compare to it is Dongsu. But Dongsu is a charge ability, so it's interruptible, so can't really compare that too well either. Now the big thing is, right, if the enemy is branded, the passive that goes from the passive to the dancer, which goes to this, they kind of work in unison. And you have a brand, right, that, well, just it does 50% more damage if the enemy is branded. I mean, there's not much else to say. The mana cost on this is pretty high. That's why Viridescent wouldn't really work, because you spam this and this one is high cost, so you're gonna start running out of mana in a medium span fight. This also has unrecoverable on it, which is on Hunter side is really good, simply because Spider is a thing, right? And the fact you can just negate Spider's main annoying mechanic is just peachy. Next, her support skill, right, it's interesting because the scaling isn't that big, right, but she still does quite a bit of damage. But the really big thing is the brand. The brand is really big, right, because basically it just makes your Sung Jin Wo, he just crits more and does more damage while critting. So this is the really big one. 15-second duration, right, with 25-second cooldown. It has fairly high uptime. I mean, unrecoverable is permanent, but there's not really that much content as Sung Jin Wo that you need unrecoverable for. So it's nice and niche to have. It's good when it's needed, right? So it's just a nice addition, but honestly, it doesn't feel like it's super necessary, right? Her QE, high as fuck damage, like high as fuck, right? You switch in, it's basically like casting an ultimate. The really big thing is, right, that you go in with her and you apply brand, so the 66% here doesn't mean shit. Like, you basically switch into her and you already have the brand prepped, so you're already doing more damage. And her ultimate, right, insane damage, nothing else to say, right? It's just like, it just does a fuck ton of damage, right? And on branded it does 30% on top of that, so you take damage and you have a 30% to it. Also, if you have advancement 5, it's basically double already, simply because of the buff. You know, it's basically just a one-shot move, right? Not much to say about it. It deals a lot of fucking damage, and that's kind of it. So this is my Hae-In, okay? So I have her at 60, like almost 68k power, right? But that doesn't really matter. The big ones are her attack being at almost 9k, and her crit rate and crit damage. Crit rate, if it's not yellow, right, you fucked up. Go back, get better stuff. And that's actually not even a joke. It weirdly sounds like a joke, but it isn't. You fucked up if this number is not yellow, you fucked up. Crit damage, right? Get this as high as possible, like as high as you can get. It works as long as this, you know, is not 0, or rather, you know, not like a, you know, as long as this is pretty high, right, it's good. Now for her artifacts, right, I myself am running a mixed set of crit set and ultimate set. The reason for that is because I didn't have pieces for full crit set. You know, it is what it is. However, I did have decent ultimate set pieces. So for her helmet, right, ideally you're gonna go attack percentage, crit rate. The other stats I have are not really ideal. You'd want like damage increase, defense penetration, flat attack, maybe, you know, like all those. But yeah, ideally you'll go crit rate on pretty much everything. And for the boots, right, ideally for the boots you want to hit crit damage. This is kind of important, having crit damage here. If you don't have crit damage, right, defense penetration and attack percentage kind of work, but I don't want to see none of that HP or defense bullshit. Other good alternatives are going for the attack set. Honestly, crit set is still better in my opinion, because you have 8% crit to play around with, plus the 32% crit damage, which kind of does more on her than these stats, but you know, it is what it is. On attack set you won't have 8% to play around with, so you're gonna really have to push that crit, right? But it's a decent alternative if you have better pieces for the attack set. Another option, and I mean surprisingly there's only one option, right, and that's the damage set. Going this polar 2 set is good almost in any case if you're building 2-2s. The problem with 4 set, right, you won't really utilize it unless you have a team that can effectively help build gauge on her. So, you know, something to keep in mind. So unless you're running her in a team with Park Hae-In, you won't be able to fully utilize this. So, you know, that's kind of a conditional set right there. I mean, there is a slight mention, right? I don't know if I would actually recommend it, but you could potentially go dragon set if you really are fucking strapped for gear, right, and you have laying around dragon set. Now for the accessories, actually you kind of have slightly more options in my opinion, right? So let me go over my gear first, right? Ideally for these you want to aim for crit damage on every single one of these. I did not get lucky on all of them. Like for example, my ring, it's a little bit lacking. The ring is like the weakest piece out of all of these. This might also be kind of weak, but you know, it's slightly less to being slightly more to be towards being good. So this is really great, right? It has crit damage, attack damage increase. This is kind of almost perfect, right? If this had defense penetration, this would be straight up perfect necklace, but you know, something to keep in mind. On a ring, you're gonna, like nothing, bracelet, you're gonna want to go for light damage, and then you're gonna try to dig for crit damage and attack percentage, you know, shit like that. They really just aim for crit damage. Also for the ring, you ideally would want attack percentage, right? But if you don't have attack percentage, additional attack, right, it also works. Other things, no, but you know, this kind of does work. Now if you're talking the, you know, the pieces themselves, right, ideally you'll want to go beast, right, because she's an attacker. You're gonna spend most time using her when you're playing with hunters, right? So you're gonna stack this up nicely, and because you're critting every time, right? It should be a pretty fucking good form of utilization. Now, if you don't have any beast ones that you could use, there's two other options in my opinion that you can use. That being red-eyed. Red-eyed is pretty good because it's just you just get 20% attack increase pretty much right off the bat, almost. And but you know, it's kind of capped at 20%, so it doesn't beat beast in any stretch of the imagination. Behemoth is also pretty good. Honestly, I'd say red-eyed and behemoth is pretty similar, like, or rather almost the same. Red-eye has the advantage of you kind of being able to do that like in the first few seconds, right? And behemoth, in some cases, you won't hit that 70% instantly, in which the 20% won't really apply. Aquamarine, right, this is more of a support set. This doesn't help her. Viridescent, while it could technically work, right, her cooldowns are low enough where she can't really utilize the cooldown reduction, and you spam her abilities quite a bit, so you will end up running out of mana, so this is kind of a trap. Skeleton is, as always, kind of iffy to utilize. While it could work, right, I generally not recommend it. Now her weapon options, right? I mean, not much to discuss, right? Her main weapon, obviously, like, chances are, right, you just got her, right? Especially if you're a little bit free to play, right? You won't get the chance to have her weapon. So good alternatives are the bow. Unfortunately, I don't have the purple bow to show, but the blue bow can work quite fine. You know, the critical damage increase is quite decent, but keep in mind, I'd say there's other options, but I'll be honest, if your crit rate is too low to accommodate the crit damage bow, right, you really need to revisit your gear, as I said before. Now her advancements, right? In reality, if you're free to play, right, her advancements don't matter. Even if you have her at A0, right, she's already the best damage dealer you're gonna get as of now in this game. But if you do care how to make her better, right, the best thing you can do is push her to A3. If you can't push her to A3, at least A2, because A2 and A3 are the really big ones. The first one essentially just gives her 2 more stacks on the dancer. The dancer normally goes up to 3. It makes it go to 5, so it gives you 16% more attack and 16% more crit damage if it's stacked. This is crit rate 16%, self-explanatory. Like, crit set gives you 8%, combined that you get 24%. It essentially gives you build room, but also pushes you closer to basically critting all the time. Her third one is really insane because it's just 50% increase for her basic skills, which you spam quite a bit, okay? Because this one essentially, once you proc it on a branded target, it's infinite. Like, you can spam it as long as you have this buff, your skill is not gonna run out, which is insane. And this one just has one of the highest ratios in the entire game for damage, right? And also the fact that you get 50% extra from brand plus 50% from the advancement, you know, it speaks volumes compared to like this guy has this pretty much the same scaling, right? But the thing with him is his skill is chargeable. That means that you need time and you can also be interrupted. Her skill just goes. Now her last few advancements, right, are kind of the smallest. If you got 3, right, you don't really need to push for 4 or 5. Obviously they help, but you don't need it. 4 is pretty big, I guess, because the crit, you just get free stats, which is kind of just half of the advancement one without the condition of stacking anything. It's good, but it's not, you know, too insane. And 5, obviously, it basically makes your ultimate hit twice as hard, but, you know, for how much you push, it's like, I think the trade-off is not that worth it unless you're building her for ultimate spamming. So now, is she worth it? Right, let me put this into perspective. At least this is how I feel. If you don't pull her on her banner, right, you might as well quit the game and wait till her banner comes back. She's so fucking broken. Like, in another perspective, right? So last patch, right before this one, I was on Spider tier 8 and I had 2 out of 3 trophies, right? I didn't have the time trophy. My team was too slow. I pulled her. I have all 3 trophies on the tier 10. I'm 60k power below the recommended for tier 10. That's like, if that's not completely fucking broken, I don't know what is. I don't know how to put it into words. So yeah, I'd say she's not even worth it. I say you should just go straight up for A3, right? Like, actually push for A3, because like, you don't summon her. I'm not sure what you're saving your summons for, because she's definitely, at least now, she's the most broken character, and I wouldn't be surprised if she gets nerfed or tuned, because her scalings are insanely there, which I suspect is because she has a skin and they want to sell the skin. But you know, it is what it is. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, right? The spider run probably ended now, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and you know, have a good day and goodbye.
任務完了。